Morning, my brothers and sisters. I share the frustration of the rest of my forum speakers and looking at this tenacious timekeeper that we had to cut through the chase and get right to the meat of the matter. I represent the International Council of Community Churches, which is a non-denominational movement among Christians both in the USA and around the world, and particularly on the continent of Africa. So I am here, though in this context, to just speak about how our local context deals with the whole question of global violence. I'm honored to be here to be a part of this. As we celebrate this particular event, it is in the afterglow of the celebration of Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday, who was a nonviolent practitioner, and certainly the second inauguration of our first African-American president and commander-in-chief, President Barack Hussein Obama. But even with the afterglow of all that beauty have come the scourge of violence, the NRA's appreciation of Gun Day, and the massive violence that we have seen here in the city of Chicago, as well as the equivocation of our congresspeople around the whole question of gun violence. I want to cut through my commentary and get to what it is that we are doing as a local congregation to help stem the tide of violence. We gathered this morning in a climate of great global pain and suffering, unquestionably, to share with each other our hopes and our dreams for a better world. Perhaps our forum today will be one more step to help lift the heavy cloud of grief and moral darkness that is so pervasive in our city, our nation, and our world, and bring us into what I consider the radiance of God's healing love. We're meeting in the afterglow of these wonderful celebrations, but since January 1, we have seen the violent deaths of many of our children and our young people, two of whom are connected to families within our congregation. One young man running to take shelter in our church was shot 3 times in the back right in the door of the church. So there's a disrespect generally for the places that we have considered sacred. 15-year-old Hadia Pendleton, whose funeral will be held on Saturday, was best friends with Kyla Jones, in whose arms she died, and is a member of our congregation. In spite of these death-dealing forces, though, we affirm life, and we stand uncompromisingly, unapologetically, and unequivocally in the tradition of Jesus' teaching from the Sermon on the Mount. It is out of this tradition that we speak to the death-dealing forces of violence globally, nationally, and in our local context. Like most of you who are here, you have also been impacted by the massive violence around the world. Our congregation is composed of at least 5 different language groups, mostly from South America, the Caribbean Crescent, West African. And wherever there's violence in any of these countries, wherever there's war, then our congregation is directly impacted by those who are native of those lands. The Christian Islamic violence in Nigeria and in Mali has caused much grief among immigrant Africans in our congregation. Healing families in this context is a continued challenge for us all. Our involvement on the global scale begins at a very local level because our mindset is that we have to think globally but act it out locally. So what we do is teach and train members about cross-cultural, racial, and ethnic diversity and interfaith harmony. We placed a world map up on the wall of my study so that the children in our congregation can begin to see and have some concept of this great world that God so loved. And that need educating our children and our youth at a very young age to appreciate difference, to be engaged globally, is a very important work for us to do. So what we've done, we made pen pal types of activities, email, cell phone use, and texting. Since they are already plugged out of most of the stuff we talk, so why not use that technology to plug them into the globe? Our young people keep up with movements around the world, particularly in Iran right now, where the brutal slaying of Nida in Iran, her death has sparked a rebellion within the country of Iran, and our young people are keeping up with that rebellion. Also, Malala, whom we honored with an award today. Our young people keep up with her healing and pray for her healing, that she will be actually restored one day. Due to our connection with the Chinese Christians, we are learning more about what has come to be known as a network of detention centers called black jails, where people are incarcerated simply because they may complain about corruption and so forth in that land. In Uganda, there is the problem of the anti-gay bill. We are monitoring that activity, and we're involved with people who are there. So how do we do this? Well, number one, we are committed to create a spirit within our congregation for peace and goodwill, for interfaith harmony and honest conversation with diverse groups. We are committed to create a community in which all people and their particular gifts are included and respected and valued. We are committed to create a community that seeks alternative to violence to settle differences. Create a community whose core values stand in sharp contrast to a culture in which violence, obsession with wealth, and profit is the norm. We are a community seeking to live in harmony with nature, the world of animals, and we believe that humans are a part of this whole thing dealing with climate change. A community eradicating racism and making peace, none at all, with injustice. Therefore, to this vision, many known and unknown have already given their lives in the hope that we shall overcome the ignorance and separation that breeds a deadly isolation that leads to violence. We believe that God has called us to this task. Thank you.